Thank you for the invitation. What my focus is today is to talk to you about two National Science Foundation STEM. S stands for scholarship, and STEM, we all know the word, track 3 projects. This is a scholarship grant that NSF offers at various scales, track 1, track 2, and track 3. Track 3 is the most expansive projects that you can go after under this particular solicitation, and I'm going to discuss some of the details. So the two grants that I'm talking about, I'm going to talk about in more detail about the older one and in less detail about the new one. Are track 3 grants that we put together in collaboration with 2 other Florida institutions, the Florida International University and the University of South Florida. The one that I refer to as Fleet Path started back in fall 2016, and it's in its first no-cost extension. So we are going to finish this project in the next couple of months. And the second one started in summer of 2021, and it's going to be extended up to summer 2026. And most of these grants are 5-year grants. I think NSF for the STEM projects allow you to go after a 6-year grant as well. So the budget is not going to change, but you could decide whether it's a 5-year or 6-year grant. So as I mentioned, we had a number of experiences with STEM grants. One of them was YES, Young Entrepreneur Scholar Program, that started back in 2008. The other one was Camp YES, started back in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And then we got the Fleet Path in 2016 and the Fleet Gap in 2021. The difference between the YES, Camp YES, Fleet Path, and Fleet Gap is that both the YES and the Camp YES were what I would call a single institutional STEM grant, while the Fleet Path and the Fleet Gap are multi-institutional STEM grants. So the way we approached both the Fleet Path and the Fleet Gap was we had a collaboration with the 2 institutions from Florida, the FIU and the UCF before, because of a grant that we received from the Board of Governors. And we use this collaboration as an opportunity for us to communicate to NSF that we have a group of individuals that have worked on educational projects before. We know how to work together, and we have common goals and interests as part of this STEM grant that we were going after. And the value of going after this with these 3 institutions, you can see some of the percentages of the population that are in the vicinity of these 3 institutions in Florida, the minority population, as well as the number of degrees that these 3 institutions produce within the collective of underrepresented minority degrees. So we had a very compelling story. These are the 3 PIs. I'm not going to spend too much time, but in essence, I show you the pathway of how we got to 2021 with the second consortium of STEM grant. We started with a team grant in 2014, collaboration with these 3 institutions. We worked on a number of educational activities to increase the number of degrees in computer science, IT, and computer engineering. And this was the springboard for the Fleet Path in 2016. And the Fleet Path was also the springboard for Fleet Gap. We did well with Fleet Path, and we wanted to expand our interest in this particular collective of grants with a little bit different target than Fleet Path, and we were able to convince NSF that this is a worthwhile project for them to fund. So one of the comments that I want to make, it's an effort that is not simply contributed by the PIs of the grant, but also a good number of other faculty. We have co-PIs in the Fleet Path grant, and we also have co-PIs in the Fleet Gap grant. Here you see the people who are contributing in both of these grants, Fleet Path and Fleet Gap. So Mark Heinrich is our co-PI in both grants, and we have also some additional co-PIs from electrical and computer engineering as well as computer science. So these are some of the goals that we put in place when we put the Fleet Path grant in place. So you can see there, and this is something that it's always an interest of Fleet Path and Fleet Gap, or all these STEM grants, to increase the student success. And some of it is related to retention and graduation. As you can see, it's part of our goal 1. The second goal, and I think that's something that I believe a lot of these STEM grants put in place, you want to put in place a number of activities for the students that you recruit in your grant so that you can enhance their success, their sense of community, and enhance their education. And also, we wanted to provide some additional curricula and co-curricular activities for the student cohorts as well. So I'm not going to read this slide. This is a very, very busy slide. But one of the things that I want to mention as an element of a fleet path or a fleet gap grant, or as we call it, an STEM track 3 grant, is that there needs to be a strong research component. So you should be able to produce results that advance the STEM literature forward. And this is, in my opinion, an important requirement. If you don't have a strong research component, I doubt that you'll be able to fund it as a track 3 grant under the STEM umbrella. So, okay, so some of the results of the Fleet Path grant that you might be interested in, we increased the retention and graduation by year 5 of our recruited students by 20%. And we got some qualitative results from the students that our evaluation team has asked them through a survey that they produced. And overall, they were very satisfied with what we offered to them through the Fleet Path grant. And as far as educational research is concerned, we have demonstrated that this sense of community and the sense of belonging, recognition, and interest in the computing field has increased amongst our Fleet Path students compared to a control group of students that were not part of our research grant. So a few more results that you may be interested in. I always think that it's important to have metrics of success for your program, and it's important to demonstrate that you have succeeded in what you promised that we are going to do. So here we promised that we were going to recruit 36 students from Track A. Track A are students that we recruit at the freshman level. And then we promised also that we are going to recruit 115 Track B students. Track B students were seniors that we recruited at the last year of their studies at UCF. So we definitely exceeded these numbers. As you can see there, in the first 5 years, we recruited 180 cohort B students and 41 cohort A students. And there you see one of the promises that we made. We made the promise that the students that we recruit in our program are going to have similar demographics with the students that are in the applicant pool. And you see there the differences in terms of African Americans, Hispanics, and female students within our group compared to what was a comparison group A. Comparison group A is a group of students that we could have recruited from, but they did not become part of the Fleet Path group. So, and these are some other results that you may be interested in. We saw here the differences between the retention and graduation of the Fleet Path students compared to a control group that we called comparison A group, and the differences are significant. Our success here is we want to keep the students within their disciplines, the disciplines that we recruited them from, which is computer science, IT, and computer engineering. And these are some additional results related to the cohort B students. We were able to retain 100% of them within their disciplines. We graduated 95% by fall 2021, and also of them graduate 95% in CS, IT, and CPE. And of the 118 cohort B students by fall 2021, almost 90% of them were graduate in 3 semesters. So Fleet Path paved the way for the Fleet Gap project. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you do write a new STEM grant, when you have one already in place, you need to identify clearly the differences between the previous grant that you have and the lessons that you learned and the new grant that you have put in place. So this is something that we have done. I'm going to skip some of the slides here so that we can reach the point where I show you some of the differences between Fleet Path and Fleet Gap. So as I mentioned, Fleet Path focused on both freshman students and senior students. Fleet Gap is focusing on junior students. The number of students that we are impacting in Fleet Path is more than Fleet Gap, but the scholarships that we provide for Fleet Gap students is much bigger. We have a very strong focus in Fleet Gap on pathways for students. One of them is the research, the other one is the internship, and the other one is the entrepreneurship. We also have a very strong focus of creating this hybrid learning community amongst our institutions, as well as a strong focus in Fleet Gap of encouraging some of the students to pursue graduate school as they graduate from UCF. And these are some of the objectives and metrics for our Fleet Gap project. I'm not going to deliberate too much on this particular slide, but I want to show you some of the things that are important from my perspective to succeed in attaining some of these STEM grants. First of all, you need to have a strong PI team, and hopefully a PI team that has worked well together. You need to have a research team. It's important that you have a research component in your STEM Track 3 grant. Otherwise, the possibility that you'll get it funded will be very low. It's important that you have an external evaluation team that figures out of how well you are doing in your project, provides you periodic feedback so that you can improve some of the elements of the project that might not be working well. It's important that you involve the institutional research support team from your institution so that they are very aware of what you're doing. They provide you the data before you submit the proposal, and they provide you the protocol of how you're going to collect data after the proposal is funded. You follow a template. There is a template in the solicitation by NSF that tells you what they want you to write about. So it's kind of straightforward what you have to do, but obviously you have to put the right amount, the correct amount of information in each one of these elements that they want you to fill out. You need to have metrics of success. I think to me that's important for pretty much everything that we do. When you say I'm going to do something, I'm going to solve a problem, you need to say what are you going to do, that if you do what you promise to do, that you're going to do better than what you're doing at this point in time. Then I talk about the first 3 pages. It's important in my mind, in the first couple of pages of the proposal, that you capture the reviewer so that they will spend some time reading the rest of your proposal. What are you doing? Why is it unique? All these things are important to include in the first 3 pages. A dissemination and sustainability of your project is also important as well. And in essence, the STEM grants want you to focus on evidence-based practices that have worked out before. They want you to provide a literature review that connects what you're doing with what has worked well in the past. And they want you to tell you, why are you together? Why aren't you going for a single institutional grant and you're going for a Track 3, which is a consortium grant? You need to explain why this collaboration of institutions will lead you to better results. You know, after a funding is in place, then some of the tips that I want to provide, which some of them are very common sense. You need to meet regularly and follow the management plan. And you need to follow the recruit plan. How are you going to recruit? How many students are you going to recruit? You need to identify your control and experimental groups so that you are able to make comparisons of how well you do with your experimental group compared with a control group, the students that you have not included in your effort. Obviously, in the annual report, you need to collaborate so that there is some kind of a uniformity of what each one of the institutions submits to NSF. And you need to do things together, right? Because you are creating a community that spans multiple institutions, not a single institutions. If you have problems, you need to solve them together, and you need to be thinking about the sustainability of your project early enough so that you can put the right things in place to sustain certain parts, elements of your project. The last comment that I want to make, which I put in a box, is that there needs to be one individual, or maybe more than one, but usually it's one, who is the heart and soul of your project in each of the institutions. This is the person that students go to with any problems that they have. This is the person that the students identify as the point of contact for your project in each one of the institutions. And this particular person might not necessarily be the PI. So it's important to keep these elements in mind as you're writing the proposal and after you got it funded. So I know I exceeded my time. This is my last slide, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.